Welcome back to Black Magic Beauty. My name is Trish, and today we are going to talk about the death of my no-buy. So if you follow me on TikTok, you might already know that I have decided to end my no-buy, which was very short-lived considering I had originally talked about starting this in the beginning of the year, which was like 6 weeks ago. So today I'm going to talk about what happened that led up to that decision and what I am doing instead. And I'm both excited and nervous to talk about this because I feel like some people are going to be disappointed in me, but I'm also very excited to have come to terms with what works for me and what doesn't, and allowing myself to stop forcing myself into boxes that I don't fit into. So I have been attempting no buys and low buys for approximately 3 years now. I've done them here, I've done them on TikTok, I've done them on Instagram, and I've even done them just in my own personal life without updating anywhere necessarily. And continuously for the past 3 years, they failed. I start out doing okay, and the longer that I'm restricting myself and giving myself rules, the more I start to rebel against those rules. And every time I slip up or make a mistake, the mistakes just keep getting bigger. And I finally came to the realization that it's just not for me. It's not how my brain works. And this is what happened that led me to that. So I'm gonna rewind to about 7 weeks ago when I was in labor. I went to labor on January 7th. So only 1 week into the new year when I'm on this brand new no buy. I was in pain, I was uncomfortable. They had given me like 8 rounds of Pitocin to try to get my labor moving because it just wasn't. And I was scrolling on my phone trying to distract myself, and I was on Reddit. And I saw somebody post about how they really miss the ABH Moonchild Glow Kit. And it got me thinking about how much I miss the ABH Moonchild Glow Kit and the subsequent Aurora palette that went with it. The Aurora palette I decluttered because one of the 6 shades in it broke, and for some reason in my mind at that time, I was like, oh, it's broken, I'm gonna get rid of it, even though it was just one of the shades. And the Moonchild palette I decluttered only like 2 years ago because I was under the impression at the time that I wasn't the type of person to wear pastel highlighters anymore, which is completely false. I just hadn't particularly been in the mood for them for like, I don't know, the month or 2 leading up to me deciding to declutter it. And I ended up regretting both of those decisions and missing both of those palettes later on. But this is a palette that was made in like 2017. So I had basically moved on from those palettes at this point until I saw that post. I saw that post and it got me thinking about how much I miss the Moonchild palette that I decluttered, and also how much I miss the Aurora palette that I decluttered. So I went on Mercari and started snooping around, seeing if anybody was selling these 8-year-old palettes. And somebody was selling both of those palettes as a bundle, brand new, never touched, for $15. Which seems like a steal until you think about the fact that they're literally 8 years old, used or not. But what did I do? I bought them. I was basically in the mindset of, I don't care right now, I'm in labor, I'm gonna give myself a little treat. So here they are. Am I mad about it? I don't even know. Honestly, like, I'm happy that I have them now because I did genuinely miss them. But like, how long is it gonna be until these aren't really good anymore? Like, they're already a little bit on the powdery side. So I'm wondering if like the more I use them, the worse that's gonna get. I don't know. That's besides the point. But this purchase is what got me starting to think about what I was doing and what my goals were and if any of this is even working. Another thing that this purchase got me thinking about was the fact that I use decluttering as a crutch to try to either make up for past mistakes or make room for new ones. So throughout the no buys and the low buys that I've done, I've been constantly moving stuff out. I've started to truly figure out like what I really like, what looks good on me, And I've refined my purchasing habits mostly to reflect that. And by doing that, I've also been getting rid of things that genuinely do not fit who I am anymore. But I've also been decluttering just to make space, like things that are perfectly usable, perfectly fine, but I might be just kind of like bored of them at the moment. I will get rid of them just to make space. And in my head at the time, it makes sense. And then like 2 weeks later, I'll be like, wait, why did I do that? That was stupid. And it all kind of just boils down to the fact that throughout this project of me attempting to purchase less things, I have just been grasping at straws, trying to make myself feel like I'm doing good, even when I'm not, just to avoid actually getting to the nitty-gritty of the problem. That's where my thought process started. Fast forward to a week or so later, and I lose access to my TikTok, which isn't the end of the world. I wasn't using TikTok that often, but I was using it. And because I had just started out on maternity leave, I was spending a lot more time in my rocking chair with my daughter, needing something to do. So I started looking around for alternatives, and I found Xiaohongshu, which is a Chinese alternative to TikTok. And I honestly really, really enjoy that app. It's a lot less brain rot than TikTok is. There's tons of like beautiful arts and crafts and cooking recipes and things like that. And everybody's just generally pretty positive and friendly. So it seems like an overall nicer place to spend time in. Where I got into trouble is the fact that Xiaohongshu has an abundance of K-beauty and C-beauty, something that I've been interested in for several years, but have never actually gotten around to researching or looking into because I've been on this project of trying to have less stuff. And I might be bouncing around a little bit, but this also reminds me of another point that I have, is the fact that throughout this time that I have been trying not to purchase things and just telling myself no, I've ended up not buying the things that I was genuinely interested in, like K-beauty and C-beauty, because I'm telling myself not to buy things. But then I end up buying other things just completely impulsively that I may or may not even want. And it's just a cycle. Anyways, as I'm scrolling around on Xiaohongshu, there is so much amazing makeup content on there, and I really just became completely enthralled with the colors. The one thing that I have found tends to be a bit lacking in American makeup is a variety of options for very fair and very cool skin. There are options, they're just not as abundant. And one thing that really drew me into the Asian makeup was how everything was sorted into color season. I found so many more items that seemed like they would be perfect for my coloring than I ever could in American makeup. When I am browsing through Xiaohongshu, I'm finding shades that just like don't exist in American makeup, like very, very pale blushes, lavender facial powders, eyeshadow palettes, that the whole eyeshadow palette is just very soft and light toned. So I spent a little while just browsing around, completely falling in love with everything that I'm seeing. And the more I saw it, the more I wanted it, and the more I wanted it, and the more I wanted it. And my collector's mindset started to kick in, and it wasn't even like, oh, maybe just try out this one thing. It was, I want to try everything. I want to try all of the brands. I want to try all of the colors. I want to try multiple versions of all of these items. And I ended up placing multiple orders in like a week, canceled some of them, and then went back and placed more. I ended up spending like $500 on makeup that I didn't need because I already have a ton of makeup. I just wanted to try everything. And that's when I basically just slapped myself in the face and I was like, what is going on? Like, why can you not stick to a plan? And I really sat down and thought long and hard about the last couple of years that I have been attempting to stop overbuying. And I started to notice a pattern where every time I start a project like this, I start out pretty strong. I'm going into it all gung-ho. I'm like gaslighting myself into thinking like I am the type of person with discipline, knowing that I have ADHD and cannot focus on anything for like an extended period of time. And then like as I go on, I'll forget that I'm even on a low buy. Like it's been a journey. It was especially apparent last year because as when I started my low buy, I went like months barely buying anything. And if I did buy something, it was within my specified rules. And then about halfway through the year, the pendulum kind of started to swing back again. And I started overbuying past what I was allowed. And then I'd be like, okay, I messed up. Time to veer back on course. And then I'd mess up again sooner and sooner. And then as like the fourth quarter of the year came around, that's when I started like buying things in mass and then desperately like decluttering things, trying to make up for it until the end of the year came around. And I was like, I bought so much stuff this year that I don't even think my low buy did anything at all. If anything, I think it made it worse because if I did mess up, I like subconsciously felt like, well, I'm not allowed to buy anything after this, so I might as well get everything I want right now instead of just like reasonably buying one thing. And that has been the trend. That has been the trend the last couple of years where putting myself in a low buy or a no buy starts to activate like this sense of lack in my brain. I like subconsciously feel like a deep set need to collect and acquire things because nothing else is coming. And I know where it comes from. I have a long history of some really deep set trauma, and part of that trauma is derived from the fact that I grew up in a very, very poor, broken household. So I didn't really have a lot, but I basically had what I needed. I just didn't have nice things. But that snowballed into me actually being homeless as a teenager and barely having anything at all. So like simple things like having hot water to take a shower or like clean clothes or even like shampoo and conditioner, like I didn't have access to that for like several years during a time that my brain was still developing. So like I know where this comes from. Like psychologically, I understand why this is a thing. But logically, I have everything I need, and I know that. I have plenty. I have more than enough. But every time that I give myself rules and I give myself restrictions, that's when that scarcity mindset and that sense of lack starts to kick in, and like the back of my brain starts freaking out because even if like in the forefront of my mind, I'm not like getting flashbacks to me like sleeping in the woods as a teenager. Psychologically, I think that's what's happening. And so like I start to think, oh, I need to collect these things while I can because nothing else is coming. So for most people, a no buy or a low buy makes sense because it kind of cuts off that stream of dopamine and it allows you to reset your brain. For someone like me, I think it actually does more harm than good because it makes my brain legitimately freak out and start to panic. Like I subconsciously start to panic. And even though like the logic side of my brain knows I'll be fine, I have plenty. If I really need something, I can go out and buy it. Like the back of my mind doesn't know that. So I think over the years, like me trying to fit myself into this box that really doesn't fit has actually done more damage than it's done good. You know, every time I fail and I break my rules, I feel like the solution to that is to make the rules stricter when in reality, I've just been going about it all wrong. So what I've decided to do instead is kind of a strange approach, but the first part of my approach is that I am allowed to buy things. If I really feel like I want to purchase something, I will purchase it. Because if I don't purchase it, what will inevitably end up happening is I'll purchase 5 other things that I didn't actually need to make up for the fact that I didn't purchase the one that I actually wanted. which is really stupid, and it's frustrating to me that I'm like that, but that's the reality. But the other thing is about extending my waiting tolerance. Now, this is something that I actually learned from a YouTuber, Shauna Ripari, and I will link this video down below. But I was watching a video recently about different ways to help your no-buy or your low-buy. Some of the advice I think applies regardless of if you're on a no-buy or a low-buy. And one of the things that she was talking about was extending your tolerance to be able to wait and allowing like delayed gratification, which I am terrible about. If I want something, I want it right then. And my approach up until now hasn't really helped with that either, because I haven't really been honing my skills when it comes to how to make purchases. I've simply been telling myself not to buy things. And obviously when that's failed, like I've been talking about, I didn't really learn anything from it. And what I think I really need to do is figure out like how to healthily shop, how to be able to purchase things in a sustainable way. And part of that is being able to wait, which I'm not very good at. And she made a point to try to figure out like what your waiting window is, which is basically how long you can like comfortably wait to buy something until it starts to like feel uncomfortable, basically. And I wasn't really sure where mine was. So part of my approach involved figuring that out. But another thing that she was talking about is to just really become mindful of your triggers. When the urge to purchase something kicks in, what are you doing? Where are you? What's around you? Who's around you? How are you feeling? Like what thoughts and emotions are going through your head? That kind of thing. And like I have heard this advice before, but I think my issue comes back to being an ADHDer. I'm constantly having a stream of thoughts going through my head, like multiple streams of thoughts going through my head at all times, to the point that it's just like white noise to me. And being able to like take a step back and really think about what's going through my head is something that doesn't come easily to me. And then the other problem with that is oftentimes, even if I do sit back and think about like what's going on in my head, I'll like forget about it in an hour or so. So what I decided to do was I decided I'm actually going to journal. That way I actually have a record of this when I look back and I try to figure out a pattern. And it seemed pretty simple at the time that I decided to do this, but so far it has been groundbreaking. I have my journal right here, and I like have already filled out like half of it. And what I've been doing is every time I get the urge to shop, I've been writing about it. I write about what I'm feeling, what the item is, what it means to me, like where I am. I've also been writing about like the things that I already have and what they mean to me, and some of my habits up until this point, just pretty much everything relating to this no buy, low buy, and the cancellation of it all. And not only has it given me something to focus on, which I think has been incredibly beneficial to me, but it's helped me narrow down a couple of things. One, I've already figured out what my waiting window is. So I last purchased something 9 days ago. And this was after I decided to allow myself to purchase things. But the urge initially came up about 11 days ago. And that's when I started writing about it. And I let the clock start ticking at that point. I was like, okay, I'm getting an urge. These are the items that I'm getting an urge for. And I took note of what time it was, what day it was, just to see how long I could wait before the urge either went away or it became too much for me to ignore. I figured out it was about 48 hours. So I spent 48 hours obsessing over a couple of lipsticks. And I knew I was allowed to buy them, but I still wanted to see how long I could wait before like it became uncomfortable. And I documented everything in this journal, and the back and forth that I was having for those 2 days about like, should I buy it? Shouldn't I buy it? What items specifically do I really want? Is it this shade or is it that shade? It was like just this rabbit hole of just trying to figure out exactly which formula I wanted and exactly what shades I wanted, and do I want all 5 or do I want to just get 3? But if I get the 5, then I get a discount, and like, am I actually saving any money if I do that? And just a whole lot of nonsense, basically. But the way my mind just wrapped around these items and would not let go, after actually taking the time to write out everything I was thinking and feeling, it kind of forced me to come to terms with how obsessive I can get at times. And there was a period that I actually started to become, this was right before like the 48-hour mark, I started to become physically anxious. I was like jittery and like rushing around like a mad person. I was becoming like super manic. And I kept telling myself, I was like, just wait until like you're done getting ready for the day. Wait until after your massage, because I was on my way to the massage. Wait until you get back in your car. I basically managed to make it about 48 hours before I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to purchase these items because I'm obviously not gonna let them go. But right around the 44-hour mark is when I started to get like really crazy. It's something that I feel like I've kind of ignored about myself until now. Like, I've always known that I have like a mild addiction to shopping. I know that I have like this need to acquire things, but I think like the physical response that has happened to me, I kind of like mentally swept under the rug a little bit. I'm like, oh no, I'm not so bad that it's gonna make me like crazy, which isn't 100% correct. I am so bad that sometimes it does make me a little bit crazy, and I think admitting that is going to be helpful to me in the long run, because I've just been doing a whole lot of back and forth with myself, trying to pretend that I'm doing better even when I'm not doing better, and comparing myself to other people online who are much worse than I am, and that's not getting me anywhere. That's not doing anything for me. I have had some wins over the past couple of years. I think my no buys and my low buys haven't been completely fruitless. I think they've taught me a lot about myself and about what I like, and it has given me some skills along the way, but I still don't think that they've been the exact right approach. But this journal that I've been writing in, it's honestly been really amazing to just let everything flow and see what comes out. So anyway, that's my plan currently. I'm obviously going to be updating empties as well as anything that does come in. I will show you guys everything that I bought, which is a lot, but you know, I'm keeping it transparent here as possible. So I'm gonna record that video at some point. But I just want to say thank you guys for following along with me and the words of encouragement that you guys have given me along the way. We're just gonna go with the flow from here on out. But thank you so much for watching and listening to my very long rant about all of this. And I will see you in the next one. So stay tuned. All right, bye.